showing that presentation here for you. So as we work on that, I'll just mention that High Point Crossing is a development that should be familiar to you because the City Council approved the project through a preliminary plat and OPPUD in September of 2024. So as an overview for you, the development, you'll recall, was just under 80 acres as approved. Now we've got that stuff up on the screen. Thank you. We've got 6 wetlands on the site, 1 existing homestead, and as approved, the project has 65 residential units. The infrastructure here would be city water with a community septic system as approved and connection to existing roadways. Here's the project, and we'll come back to this image, so I'll skip past it and kind of get to the important parts. I'm going to try and be pretty brief this evening to give you and the developer the most time to discuss some of the questions you might have. So after the approval in September of 24, the developer went into a little bit more of a review phase for their project to do additional testing on the site. They wanted to understand, is that community septic system going to work? What they found through testing on site, the soils, is that the community septic system, unfortunately, is not viable. It will not meet applicable MPCA requirements, and so that kind of brought the developer back to the drawing board, and the developer, in coordination with staff, we've identified effectively 2 different alternative paths for a project to move forward on this site. The first alternative is to consider extending the city's MUSA boundary to sewer the High Point Crossing development, to provide public sewer where we had the community septic system previously. So the big thing with that is obviously that we will have to amend the comprehensive plan if that alternative is to be considered and to move forward. We would also, as staff, be recommending with that alternative the creation of a new future land use category. I would go into that here on another slide. And then with those changes, though, we would effectively be able to get a very similar development to what the city approved in September of 24. Alternative 2 is effectively what I would consider to be more of like a large lot rural development where the developer would be looking at having individual septic systems as opposed to a community septic system. That would necessitate revision to reduce the number of lots, make the lots larger, and in order to accommodate those primary and secondary drain fields for their septic systems. So at the end of the day, that would likely mean that we would have significant revisions to the approved plan that was approved in September, and it would be a significant departure from the existing OPPUD standards where we've got buffers and open space requirements. So to dive into alternative 1 a little further, again, the primary change here would be to the city's comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance. We would be looking at creating a new future land use category that we're currently calling the OPLDR, which is the Open Space Low Density Residential District. This is something that we've discussed as staff. We've actually coordinated with the Met Council to understand if this is something that would work. And at this point, we've vetted it enough to think that it can be workable as we've presented it to them. And this is a district that in theory would not be just for this property, but it could be utilized by the city for other developments in the community. And there will be a conversation later this summer about potential, starting to think ahead on the 2050 comp plan and consider areas where the city may want to reevaluate the MUSA boundary. Getting back to this development, though, we'd be looking at a new district. Staff are proposing that if we were to do that, we would be looking at a density range of between 2 to 3 units per acre to try and minimize the impacts on the overall density in the community. We'd be looking at requirements for a minimum lot area and width that you see on the screen, just under 10,000 square feet with 80 feet wide lots, and importantly, requiring 50% open space for a project. As I mentioned, we could consider the use of this district outside of this project so that we're not creating a whole new category just for one development and really thinking through how this could be used in other areas. Some thoughts for you, just preliminarily, are maybe considering some of the undeveloped parts of the community south of Stillwater Boulevard and potentially in the area specifically of Inwood Avenue and 10th Street. The sewer connection, just to address that point, how do we get sewer to this property? It would come from the current location on Inwood and 10th. So here's the development that the city approved in September of last year. This is generally speaking what would come forward were we to move forward with this alternative one. As I mentioned, we talked to the Met Council to try and understand if this can work from a density standpoint and what would the impacts be if we did this on the city's density. The top chart here is an evaluation of if we did this project now in the city's current LDR district, the way that we interpret density and the way that the rules are written, we would have about 0.86 units per acre, which would be well below what's allowed. If we create a new category that allows us to net out the open space that would be dedicated, we would be looking at a much higher density of 1.86 units per acre, which is way closer to the floor of 2 units per acre that staff is recommending. The chart on this bottom part of this slide is a little harder to read, but we did an evaluation of what would the citywide density be from the Met Council's perspective if we did alternative one, and it went down from 3.15, which was in the density log currently, to 3.11. So you're still above 3 units per acre across the city's MUSA area, but as you know, that requirement is going to increase in the 2050 planning process. All right, option 2, this is those larger lots. We'd be going from 65 to 30 units, and I'll show you a concept on the next slide. This would still, there's a couple ways to do this. If the city were to choose this path, we could consider this as an OPPUD or some other form of zoning modification. This would be, as I mentioned, be a significant departure from the OPPUD standards, which are a 50% open space and buffers. There's additional flexibility the developer is looking to request if they go this route. Those things are on the screen. Looking at requesting a rural versus an urban road section. Looking at requesting that wetlands and stormwater ponds be allowed to be on private lots given the area requirements, and the use of PVC or plastic versus ductile water main as a standard. And so those are things that we've talked to the city engineering department about. If the city were to move this direction and consider that flexibility, the engineering department would need time to effectively evaluate and create new standards for these things that are being requested. So here's the concept plan that would be revised, after more work is done on the site if we were to move the path of alternative 2. So that's the high level that you get from me on this one. We're looking at really needing from you some feedback on which direction to move. After we get that general direction, we would have likely more work to do to refine some of the things that we would recommend this to come forward as. So. I'm happy to take questions. The developer, Rachel Development, has a presentation for you as well about how they got here and kind of some of the things that they're reviewing. So I'll pause.
Councilmember Holtz.
So there's a lot of info there.
Yeah.
I'll just start with a straightforward one. I recall discussions for years about having to bring sewer elsewhere, long distances. One of the ones was with 180, whether we brought it up from Inwood. In this case, what would that even look like in terms of cost, time frame? Would a developer be paying for that, or is that coming from the utility fund?
Great question. So the question is about the alignment of sewer if it were to come to this site. There's currently a sewer project that's planned in the area of the southern sewer area of this part of the city. I don't know all of the details about that. I just know that it impacts the timeline. To the question about who pays for it, that would be a private development cost to bring sewer to a developing site.
And I assume, I will not presume, when it would be brought in that hypothetical of alternative 1 along Inwood, we would want to make sure it's upsized appropriately in case it's going elsewhere down the road.
Yeah, sure. And so to that point, if oversizing is done, then that could be a conversation about who bears that cost.
Gotcha. many other questions, but I'll wait.
Keep them rolling.
I'm gonna tee it up for Paul if there's no further questions for me.
Okay. You have more questions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead.
So in alternative two, say with stormwater being on private lots.
Yep,
Would, in that hypothetical, would it be treated similar to a easement?
correct, exactly. So if we had a stormwater pond on a private lot or even a wetland on a private lot, we'd be requiring easements in order to ensure that, you know, the city has the rights to that area. In the case of a stormwater pond, we also need to make sure that there's access, should the city ever have to go back there and do maintenance. Generally speaking, I prefer to recommend outlots for stormwater ponds, just because it makes, I think, everyone's life easier when it comes to maintenance.
Because I'm trying to think of instances, and all of our recent ones, it is outlots. Are there ones historically, like from the 90s or previously, where we have stormwater on lots and there's easements?
There's older developments. I don't know of any off the top of my head in Lake Elmo. I do know that in other communities, they will do that. They will allow for easements over stormwater ponds as opposed to separate outlots, but I think it tends to be a little cleaner long term to have those private outlots.
Thank you.
So, in alternative two, we're seeing lots in the neighborhood of 1.5 acres to 2.7 acres roughly. Now, I could be misinformed or not have the right memory. But when the Met Council indicated some of their structure, we're not supposed to do any development with, say, 2.5 acre lots going forward. You mentioned that alternative one, we talked with the Met Council, they felt like that was something, was this alternative also discussed with Met Council, and how was that perceived?
So that's a great question. We haven't brought this alternative to the Met Council at this stage for a question about whether that would work. I don't, off the top, see any major issues right now with doing this if it were to be through an OPPUD, but we would have to your point, ask the question before we were to move forward.
So then, we saw some density levels, correct? It was based on alternative one, going from 3.511 to 3.1. That was alternative one,
Yep.
correct? Did we have a similar number if we go from that to alternative two? And
We did-
what would that number be?
So we're looking at a pretty low density. I think this is gonna be even like around, do you know the? 0.4. So we're at 0.4 with this. And we didn't do the evaluation of citywide density impacts because it's not sewered in this scenario.
Okay. But isn't our, maybe, I thought our overall density was for the whole city, not
It's
just
just
for
the
the,
Seward
just
area.
the Seward area?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Otherwise, we
Wait
can
until after, yeah.
hear from Mr. Robinson. Thanks, Nathan.
Yep.
Paul Robinson, Rachel Development. I practiced this a couple times, and I said I'm happy to be back, but I think maybe we're not happy to be back. I mean, I think that for both of us, we spent some time, and we put together what we thought was a pretty great plan. And to be here tonight, to have to keep trying to figure out a way to develop that site is kind of disappointing, for us, and I imagine maybe for you, because I think we had kind of a cool neighborhood that we were looking forward to implement. So I was just gonna go through my brief history, very similar to what Nathan had just talked about, and outline the two options as we see it a little bit, and then take any questions you have. So let's see. All right, so again, a year and a half ago, we brought the sketch plan to you, which led us to then take that plan to the neighborhood. We eventually went to had a public hearing at the planning commission, and then brought it back here almost a year ago for the city council to approve it in September. And so we thought we were sitting pretty good because we had pretty much all winter to put together the septic plans and to put together final plans and to be in the ground, this year right now. And so we worked on that septic design. We actually fully designed it. So we have a 40, 50-page document. It was a package plant. It was like creating a municipal wastewater treatment plant. And of course, I hired consultants that had done a number of these all throughout the Twin Cities. And so it's disappointing to me, to my consultants, mainly more to me, that we're in this situation. But they met with the state, I'm gonna say 3 or 4 times along the way. And it became clear as we're getting closer to the end of that design, that they kept asking for more information. They were like, well, make sure you have this test and, make sure you do this. And so we were, it's not required, but you might wanna do this. And at the end of the day, we realized that they were going through a process of figuring out how to reevaluate these septic systems, and they were going to require additional testing. So we went out, we did additional soil testing. We ended up doing a mounding study, which is the real critical study, and the first one came back with kind of mixed results. We wanted to get a second opinion about that, so we took it to Braun Intertech. Braun did ask that we do some more testing called hydraulic connectivity testing. That took a month and a half, where you go out and take core samples and you let water drain through it to figure out exactly how fast the water goes through it. Different than infiltration, it measures it in, I think, 2 directions. I'm not an expert on that. But at the end of the day, after that hydraulic connectivity testing was done, we had one of the Braun experts put it through the mounding report and the mounding study, and then really determine that within a short period of time, the community septic system wouldn't be able to handle the water. There's just the amount of water flow from the neighborhood. And so then, after putting all that work into it, sometime in January, we figured out we didn't have a system. And so I think we spent a month in shock, a little bit angry, going through all the emotions you would. And then we spent a couple months figuring out what are some of the possibilities, what could we do, talking to the landowners. And then we worked up a couple options, met with staff, and got to a point where we could be here tonight and just outline a couple options for you to consider. And so the first option, I'm just gonna talk about it really simply, right? It's the preliminary plat with city sanitary sewer. So that's option 1. And the second option is just a rural development with individual septic, treatment systems. So that's basically what we're asking you to consider, one or the other. When you look at the first option, you'd have to create a new land use, as Nathan mentioned. They're calling it OPLDR. I didn't know of this. They showed me the specifics previously. I didn't see it in the staff report. But the idea that of 80-foot lots and some of the specifics, I think we're going to still need to talk about, because this has 70-foot lots, and I'm at 1.86 units per acre. So if you go to 80-foot lots, you're not going to get to the 2 units per acre that they're saying the minimum guiding should be at. So I mean, there's a little bit of math that we can work out in there, but I feel like with an OPPUD, when you take 50% of the site and put it into open space, it may not be a problem. I mean, it may not be something you need to regulate what the lot size is, because it's going to be determined by the density. But so anyway, so this new land, that was ad-libbing, sorry. This new land use would be basically for, to allow sanitary sewer and OPPUDs. It would be basically the same plan as the OPPUD. How would sewer get to it? So here's our site on Inwood. We'd have to do a lift station. We just built this one last summer in Cottage Grove, as the example. There'd be a force main to a place in the city. I talked to Jack at one point. He thought there was enough capacity at Highway 10 and Island Drive once the Met Council lift station is completed later this year. And so, or it might be even into next year, but there's a Met Council lift station being constructed to increase the capacity in this area. And so that's how it would get served. There was that question about kind of what density. We were suggesting 1.5 to 2.5 units per acre to give a little bit more flexibility in the density. If you just did it for this particular piece of property, this is the table right out of the comp plan. You could add, you could add the line in there, put the facts, and you still wouldn't tip over the overall density to under 3 units per acre today in the city. The current density, again, as we're showing it, is 1.86 units. If we needed to get to smaller, we could try to, if we needed to get to 2 units per acre, that is something we could talk about. We would have to reduce the backyards. So right now, the backyards are probably 40 or 50 feet in a lot of cases. 30 is probably from here to the wall. you know, we're trying to get enough reasonable amount of backyard for people to have. And so we didn't want to reduce it too small. But if we do reduce the lots, you know, when we brought the small lots in previously, we had to do the hardcover at 50%. So that could tip the hardcover on a few of the lots to a little bit higher. I think these are devil in the details we can work out. I feel like tonight we're really just trying to see which direction you're thinking about, if you like either of the two. But those are some of the things that would be probably things to discuss. If I think about some of the benefits of this plan, I think it's easy because it's the same as our approved plan. It still saves 60% open space. It's a unique way to allow density while also protecting open space. And there's no worries about future septic failures, individual or community. And so I know there was a lot of concerns along the north about the septic system. Those might go away because now we could plant some trees up there, have a little bit of buffer in an area where we had to have a septic system previously. The second option, I was calling rural single family, and I will talk about the comp plan here in a second. Because in the comprehensive plan, this property we're talking about tonight is guided rural single family. And in your comp plan, the rural single family merged residential estate and rural single family. And if you look at residential estate, that was that 0.3 units per acre if you max out the best you can. If you look at rural single family and you did it as dense as you could, you'd be at about 0.66 units per acre. And the guiding for this property, RSF, allows for up to 2 units per acre. So I didn't know, Mayor, when you mentioned that there's a limit to like the size of the lots, because I didn't see that anywhere. And I wasn't sure that was the case in the rural areas, because I feel like your comprehensive plan said, hey, we might do this, and here it is. And it could have been through an OPPUD, but it didn't mean it couldn't be through another code. And so that's why we picked RS, because it was existing, and it sort of was a good guide for how development could occur. And so this basically doesn't max out the density with RS, but basically follows the principles of it. So we have 30 lots, 1.5 acres. Guess the density is at 0.4 units per acre, 2.5 acres per unit. It uses individual septic systems, so we'd need 10,000 square feet on each lot for a primary and an alternate. That's 5 each. And I did walk out there with the gentleman who installed the septic systems in Torrey Pines and some of the systems to the north. And we felt from our walk and doing about 20, 30 test holes that there's ample area to find on each lot, so long as you have enough flexibility to move around. That's why the larger lots. We applied the RS standards. I'm not going to go through all those, but it's 125-foot wide minimum. These are all larger than that. And those are some of the other minimums, but they provide a lot more flexibility than, for example, rural or residential estate, which has like 100-foot front setback, 50-foot side setback, which in the end really limit where you can put the house and limit where the septic systems can go. So some additional considerations for us to pull this off, we'd like to be able to do a rural road section. So just a typical rural road, 28-foot wide. We'd like to do 4-foot gravel shoulders instead of the concrete curb. I know you're concerned about the maintenance of those, but we've found that these kinds of roads last all over the Twin Cities. But if not, it would look more like Whistling Valley, I think. And then convey the stormwater along the roadside instead of in storm sewer. The ponds, again, we talked about that as far as the ponds could be in drainage and utility easements versus outlots. That's more an issue of the lot size, right? So if we could do 1.2 acre lot or a 1 acre lot, maybe we could put the pond into an outlot if that's preferred. When you're asking for examples, both the development to the north and the south have ponds within lots in the DNU on each side of us. So that's how it was done previously, especially in rural areas where you have a little less flexibility than when you have urban development. And then we would need to pull this off, we would need wetlands and wetland buffers to also be allowed in the lots, which is also the case for both the properties for Lake Elmo Heights to the north and Torrey Pines to the south. And then we asked this question, we know this might be the most volatile question, but as far as going with PVC versus ductile iron, because it does save some additional funds. The property to the north has HDPE pipe. Basically, there's plastic pipe to the north. We're connecting to a plastic pipe in Inwood. It would seem like we could put plastic pipe through the development. And I mean, I would say 40 to 50% of the cities in the Twin Cities do that. And it's just probably, like I said in my memo, 10, 20% cheaper. Some of the benefits of this plan, I believe there's no comprehensive plan needed. You could use an existing district. I think there would need to be a council action to sort of resurrect the RS district, because you did kind of put it to bed, but it still exists in your code. That's at least what I think could happen. It's very similar to the adjacent uses, right? It's, you know, more rural, typical rural feel. There would be limited exceptions if we just use the RS standard. So that's kind of the overall on that. And then my final thoughts on this, and I am ending, so this is good, is just with option one, you know, there's a Met Council approval element, so that's something that none of us control. We'll have to, you know, the Met Council will have to look at this and approve it or not. And, but with the option one, I would say that for us and for all of us here, there's a little bit more certainty because we have actually fully designed it, right? It's a fully designed pre-plat, stormwater management plan, all of that has already been done. So I think there's just much more certainty for that. Option two, there's a little bit of risk because it's not fully designed. I did have our engineer lay out the lots with a grading plan and look at the grading, but we didn't do a fully designed stormwater system, and we still need more soil work to identify the septic systems on each lot. I'm optimistic that we can make that work, but it would need a little bit more massaging. So with that, I think I'll leave that and just hear the two options and open for any questions. I know it's a lot to handle. I mean, it's a lot to get your arms around, but
Questions? Councilmember Holtz?
So early on, you described the testing that was occurring.
Yep.
That the state was asking for additional feedback, and the conclusion that you were led to believe from your specialist was the issue of too much water. Is that water from rooftops and impervious surface?
no, from the effluent from the
All right,
septic
from the
system.
process itself?
Yep. And we didn't apply for the license because the mounding study failed. And so and the state said they would ask us for a mounding study. And so we had two people do two different mounding studies. We talked to two doctors on this one and both failed.
So what are the variables that could impact the amount of water one way or the other? Or is there anything that's controllable in that situation?
It's the characteristic of the soil. It's just a science of the soil.
So it's
There's
something
nothing,
that's,
like even if we spread this system out to be twice as wide, we couldn't have made it work.
all right. So it is unique to this site. So in that
It is.
in that hypothetical, this could functionally work on a different site depending upon the soils.
Right.
So it
If we went
is
to
a
Cottage
function
Grove in
of the
sand
site.
Yeah, we would be there'd be machinery on the site,
All
right?
right, thank you.
Councilmember Jerry?
So you haven't confirmed that the individual septic systems will work yet?
I mean, I took an expert out there and walked the lots, but you know, I had experts on the other one too, so I totally 100% get this. I understand the irony of it, but I haven't. And, you know, because you have to do 20 or 30 per lot. And so and it's, you know, a $15,000 exercise. If it's something that you're leaning towards tonight, that would be the first thing I would do to make sure that it would work. And that's why I feel like it's a work session, so I'm kind of wanting a little dialogue back and forth, because I'm not coming to you saying, I absolutely want this or that. I'm just saying, boy, I'm trying hardest I can to find something that'll work. What direction what direction do you think I should go?
Yeah, my concern is the amount of water going into the soil is the same, it's just maybe over a bigger area when you have the individual septic systems, but maybe not. I didn't know how big your drain field was coming out of the plant, and, you know, if I added up all the drain fields for the individual septics, would I have the same area or bigger area? We don't know that yet.
No, and I debated bringing experts tonight to really like explain this, but we have a half hour, so I was like, that could have taken the entire half hour. I taught the individual treatment systems just have a much lower standard and threshold, and they capture a lot more of the water in that 10,000 square feet within the first foot, and so it's just a different dynamic. It's just than when you concentrate it all into one area, and so that's my understanding.
I do know that a lot of sites in Lake Elmo, due to the heavy clays, silty loams, once their primary runs out at whatever time that county design, because it's a county permitted septic, they have to revert to a mound system, so.
Right, which is the other way you could build up soil on top.
Yep.
And, right.
Oh, go ahead, finish
No,
up.
no.
Councilmember Hurd.
Do you mind going back to the slide where you were talking about the wetlands, please? And maybe we could just have a little conversation around that. I think in your slide, it was,
Talking about the wetland.
it was
Like
towards
as far
the
as
end.
Buffer?
Towards the end.
I'm not sure where.
And maybe we don't need
Like
it, but
here?
just to have a conversation around that.
Okay.
I know Nathan had brought up some concerns with that specifically. So maybe, I guess if you could just kind of share from the development standpoint, why we're looking to do that, maybe more specifically as well for the stormwater ponds, and maybe
Okay.
I just missed it, I just
Yeah,
didn't see
well,
that in the,
I can explain. I mean, I'll just say that it's kind of like ductile iron and PVC. Every city has a different way of thinking about this. Many cities do drainage utility easements over ponds, wherever they may be, and are perfectly happy with that because it gives them all the same rights to access and maintain the ponds. It's just that having an outlot is just a little cleaner delineation. You don't have to worry about a resident accidentally putting something in, into the pond or there's a clear, like, bifurcation. And if you go in to maintain them, people don't think you're maintaining their yards. So I get why cities want to do it. It does, and when you can do it, it's probably cleaner for a city. And I hate to say that, but I mean, but that's true. So in this instance, you can see like here we have the ponds out in open spaces. But because of the characteristic of the property on the rural plan, we have that, it gets steep. There's a kind of a break in the property and there's a slope that comes down. We're trying to bring that road up to the north side of that, not right along the ridge line. And so when we do that, the lots to the north, we can only make them 1.5 acres, you can see, to fit into that threshold. So I can't really move the road. And if you want ponds and then you want outlots, well, then I gotta cut down, from the north. I'm just not gonna have the space to get that size lot in there. So that's the issue. If it's really like boy, we really want outlots no matter what, and we're willing to look at some 1 acre lots, well, then we maybe could do it. I think with 1 acre lots, I probably could make it work. With the wetlands, I mean, here you can see a wetland in the picture. You can't really see it through my area, but it's just because the size of the lots gets so big, right? So when you're at 1.5 acre size, it gets a lot harder to avoid completely all the wetlands on a site and get 1.5 acres on all the lots.
Sure.
So that's,
yeah.
and if you look around town to the older rural developments, you'll see that's not uncommon.
Yeah, and, gosh, yeah, tough situation here. And I guess maybe just to help guide too for, helping make a decision, like those 3 requirements that you ask for at the end, I mean, I guess I do see those being potentially concerns. And if the
Which
wetlands,
requirements? Oh.
stormwater ponds being within,
Okay.
the PVC
Oh.
versus ductile,
Okay. What I need is exceptions, kind
the
of,
curb
or
and gutter, and
flexibilities.
I guess like if you aren't able to get those exemptions, and then that would make option 2, not feasible for you guys financially. I guess that my thought is, I think there's probably gonna be some concerns when we actually have to vote on it, if those 3 things are being asked of it. And if those are requirements for you to make it a successful project, I guess I would have concerns about telling you to, hey, to even go down that avenue of, keep planning for option 2 if we're gonna say no to all 3 of those
Right.
requests.
That's fine, that's fair. I mean, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and
But
that's what
I
I'm
would say
trying
the PVC ductile iron one is kind of, I've seen that one get into like the sensitive category when it comes to public works, because it's such a personal choice thing.
Sure.
But the outlots, outlots for the ponds, honestly, I think there's some good rationale, that you could allow it. I mean, so, and then as far as not having a city, road standard in this development, because what that does is it brings in not just the cost of the curb, but the cost of the catch basins and the storm sewer. You start to add the cost of an urban development to a rural development, and there's just not enough lots to spread the cost. And so again, if that's something you guys are like, absolutely, we're never gonna budge on that I will have to factor that in.
Yeah, you mentioned Whistling Valley, but I think in the last road redo, that's all curb and gutter now,
Not the ribbon curb?
excuse me?
It doesn't have that 2-foot ribbon curb? I thought it did.
It might have some ribbon curb in places, but it does have some
Okay.
surmountable curb in some of the curb, and, I mean, that would probably be ductile versus plastic PVC. I'm not that hung up about, maybe just because I don't know the intricacies of the two. But the standard that we're trying to do throughout the city, that would be a hangup for me on the urban versus rural and gravel shoulder, because I know there's some other people that have asked that, and I would probably be of the mindset that curb and gutter would be needed.
What about the stormwater wetlands area?
Yeah, that'd be something we'd have to discuss. I guess I don't have a strong yes or no.
I guess
On
that's all I'm
that
trying
now,
to, is
yeah,
just provide some guidance as far as, you
Yeah,
know,
but
certainty for them as they're trying to figure
only
out which
one I
path
can-
to go.
Yeah, the only one I could really say for, definitely, at least for me, is I wouldn't want to put a road in there. It's got 4-foot gravel
Yeah.
shoulders.
And I think the other conversation is, you know, Jeff had kind of brought up about bringing sewer to this neighborhood, you know, would require comprehensive plan amendment. That the plan is coming up here soon where we're gonna be going over that, obviously 180 acres to the north. I mean, there's a lot to consider there, so, I mean, I think that's probably an important piece to discuss for,
Yeah.
Have you
For
guys
option
had
one.
many rural developments? Like I haven't, like recently?
Excuse me?
Have you had many rural developments recently, like 2.5 or? Because
No.
I'm just, I've tried. I mean, I've tried to make the math work with all of your requirements, and I just don't know how somebody pulls it off, especially in the school district we're in, you know, because then you're leaning more to a family buyer.
Well, and early on, I mean, I think part of the demographic you were looking at probably wasn't that,
Right.
that school family, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
I mean, I will say with the MUSA, my gut is I would rather have that conversation as part of the 2050. I made that clear when we were talking about the site toward the south of this for the plant. Especially given that this is surrounded by 2.5 acre lot neighborhood to the south and 3 to 5 acre neighborhood to the north. We already had a very good quality conversation about updating the OPPUD. So I don't know if this is even a good spot for the MUSA anyways. There's absolutely a benefit to having sewer on Inwood to potentially get to neighborhoods on the east side as you get closer to Stillwater Boulevard, where those lots are smaller. But I don't know if this is, I don't want to say, hey, let's allow it here, but so then we can have an added benefit elsewhere. I want to focus mainly on this site. I don't have an issue with the stormwater and doing easements on site, because that does exist in Torrey Pines, it does exist in Lake Elmo Heights as well. But obviously, at the time, that was something that was permissible. I mean, I see one in Tapestry, a couple in Tapestry, but obviously it's not something in Easton or in Pulte recently. I would agree in terms of curb and gutter, that's our modern that is our standard for purposes, many purposes, for sustainability, for the environment, for maintenance. So I would agree in that regard. PVC, I can't make an informed, I'm an educator, I have no view on.
You know, this site, like the one other site that's in the comp plan that has the same designation,
yeah.
right?
I meant to bring that point up, I
It
forgot.
really creates some really difficult situations for the landowner, because it wasn't really spelled out in the comp plan what it should be, so then it lays on us this, you know, man, it would have been really nice to have that package plant work, right?
100%.
So then we jump to B and C here, and it creates some questions of, well, you know, you create a island MUSA, and we've had to bail out one development due to their septic failing, and who knows if that'll happen again, right? And it's kind of a sensitive topic for the council, and so part of me is like, man, I don't want to really touch that MUSA question. But the other hand, it would be nice to see something that could work, and you've worked your tail off in trying to create options here, and some have some internal conflict with both, right? And I wish there was an easy button, but I'm not seeing it.
Right. I mean, this feels like maybe we need to go to a bar with some beers and talk a little harder on this, because I think,
Councilmember Dragisich.
Yeah, you know, my preference, I know the MUSA adjustments are a lot of monkeying around. But, you know, how many times in my life, I can tell you, sitting in front of city councils where they had area that septic systems were put in, and down the road, you got a situation where some have just replaced theirs, some are failing, and the rest are kind of somewhere in the middle. And they're in this quandary about how do we put the sewer in and get it paid for? Because the people who put the new septics don't want to pay an assessment. I just put a new septic in for $30,000 last year. You got 5 at the end of the road that are failing, you know, and they got to do something, and rather than a septic, you'd rather just spend the money, connect up the city. And so to me, when we go along with the septics on these, we set up a future issue for the city in trying to deal with those failures. We were talking about one at our last meeting. And so I'm kind of inclined to go to the fall. Let's get the sewer and be done with it then we're done for the future.
If somebody was saying you have to go one way or the other, I guess I would go option 1 from the standpoint that the sanitary goes in, it's a force main that goes down to a location where the Met Council can accept it. The staff has already discussed that option. Of the two, for a couple of reasons, I guess I would lean towards option 1. Just option 2, quite honestly, Paul, for me, you have a hard time getting like a rural road in there, at least. I mean, I might get outvoted 4-1, but I would be the one,
Okay,
just to let you know.
I see the sword.
Yeah,
You are the one, Mayor.
I would be the one,
Yeah. That's,
and I'm okay with that. But as far as, you know, with all due, you know, all consideration to the property owner, I wanna treat them as a partner in this and see something work for them. If I had to lean, you know, and certainly, would, you know, there's some obvious signs that staff has done some work on this and looked into it and talked with the Met Council, that's probably where I would be the most comfortable.
the one thing I did skip over in my presentation, and I think you touched on it though, is that this is one of the 2 properties guided for RSF that are 20 acres. And the land seller told me when I first bought the property, or was under contract, and that they've met with the city several times, and that, you know, yeah, you could do an OPPUD, but they just said, bring a developer forward, because they were gonna create a new ordinance for this particular land use, because it sits by itself, right? I mean, it's 0.1 units to 2 units per acre. So there's really no zoning, I just showed it, there's no zoning that even comes close. You're about 30% there. And so I thought I guess that's what we've been trying to do, right?
Sure.
We've been trying, and we did accomplish it together. Like, so it isn't that you've said no because you did say yes. It's just that unfortunately the soils failed us.
Mm-hmm.
So just so I'm understanding, I mean, the main, because again, with the option 1, that is what we've approved. The main difference is now, because it has sewer, it would have to be part of the MUSA, so it's gonna impact the numbers, and so we have to create a new zoning as a result of it, which opens up kind of potential for other lots to be able to go this route.
Well,
Is the main concern with option 1 the fact that we'd have to bring the sewer out? That seems to be the main concern.
yeah, that would be kind of an island of the MUSA, right? Typically, but for, what's the development up here that we added, the MUSA? on the not the
Sunfish
other one,
Lake.
No, the other one.
Tapestry.
Tapestry, yeah, so that's kind of,
And the
Out
concern
there
with the
ways.
island is,
yeah, right? So
I don't
what
know.
is it other than a feeling, right?
and maybe, I mean, I don't want to say that as in like sarcastically either. I mean, maybe there is a concern with, you know, does it look like it's not planned versus.
I'll just be completely honest, some of it's just optics, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I just need to forget about that and just say what makes sense.
I mean, do we expect sewer to want to
Well-
move it north with that development?
I guess, you know, sewer from a city's perspective is all what Met Council can take, right? Or what they plan on taking. Because we don't own that planning tool. They take what they can, right? So does this limit us someplace later? Does the other however many acres that are off 20th Street come in and, but I think also that the developer, Paul, is, you know, I wanna give him some credit here. He started off with something that tried to fit in the land. He didn't jump right to,
No.
I wanna bring sewer in, right? So this is this is what I would
yeah.
call a good example of partnership between the city and the developer, trying to make something work that can work for the city and the developer can deal with, so I want, something I'm.
Maybe something to just
consider.
think about, is, I think there's potential that there could be, MUSA area added to the east of this as well.
No,
That's part
that's
of. Wyoming.
county,
County Park,
north and east, so.
northeast, the,
Where we're talking about the
Oh.
water treatment plant.
oh, yeah, right,
So near, like, closer,
right.
because I
Yeah,
think that
off-
was
right
the
off
idea.
10.
I know nothing's approved there, obviously,
Right,
yet,
yeah,
but
no, yeah.
the conversation, I mean, would that change the math on it at all,
Dude,
as far as proximity?
Nathan's saying yes.
Yeah, so just to jump in on that one, so if the council were to move forward with option one, we'd be looking at creating a district that could be used in other contexts, including some of the parcels you've recently discussed, which would be the ones around that water site. So this is something that could be reused then. I would just reiterate that we're also planning to have another meeting at some point this summer to have that more broad conversation about the MUSA. So you can have that opportunity to really discuss where and when expansion may be appropriate.
And I should clarify, it's not that we already approved option one in terms of density.
Right,
And I continue to think that is a great plan because it has 60% open space. It aligns with a much larger value of the community than any other shared value, open space. So in that regard, it is a plan we already approved of. And maybe you're right, Mayor, maybe it is, maybe it's not a substantive policy issue to have an island. I fully support the peninsula of a MUSA at the school.
yeah.
It's a beautiful peninsula. It serves a public good. I will vote for that 10 times out of 10. So in that regard, maybe you are right for once.
You know, part of it is, Paul, we get beat up quite a bit for not exactly following the comp plan at times, and the school is a prime example of that, right? And for there, at least for my matter, that was for the public good. In something like this, right, it's not the public good, but for lack of an option to do something that fits the site and works for the city, I'm struggling with coming up, I feel like, whether it has been done or not, I feel like the options have been thoroughly vetted and reviewed. And like Councilmember Dragic said, I live in a community that has a community septic, and we've got our own issues with that. And I'm not, we run into people that have septic systems, and then they have to go to Plan B, and it's a mound system, right? And that's also a cost to the residential person, the taxpayer there that sometimes feels like a lot, right? When I don't know, is it 25,000 to convert into a mound system, I think, something.
Or more,
Yeah, it's not a cheap endeavor, right? So, but I know right now, there will be emails of like, oh, there you go again, not following the comp plan, just, throwing water over the wall.
I understand the comp plan, but the city didn't etch it in stone and hand it down from
It's-
heaven.
it's a guide. It's a
It's a
guide.
guide, and you make adjustments to it based on, we did a plan 20 years ago.
Understood.
And you make those adjustments. The other thing, I think, maybe we need to reframe this whole sewer question and say, if we look at this sewer extension, because his soils will not allow him to put in a treatment plant there, are there other areas that could benefit from this 30 years from, like, to the south where the lots are all on septic?
I think
know-
it would be short-sighted to say no.
Right, but
Right.
we took a long-term view of working with our engineer and planning, and say, if we went along with this, is there any other consideration that would make this a good choice? They might not be in a Musa now, but again, if septic systems fail, and you got the sewer main out there, maybe they say, we'll put a lift station in and pump into that force main,
Sure.
because that's a better alternative for us than trying to spend $40,000 each on a mound system. And so, I'm saying, let's maybe expand our view a little bit and say, if we went this route, what would be the long-term potential benefits of it, if it's 20 years from now? Because we expect that system would be in there for 40 or 50 years at least.
Well, and that was honestly why I asked Nathan the question, like, why would we want to be upsized in that hypothetical?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we would, because we are asked every other year, the last 10 years, to bail out a neighborhood.
That could be engineered too.
I wanted to just clarify that I mean, in our performa, we are planning on paying for the lift station and the force
Right.
main. I mean, so that is, so we're planning on paying for it now, just like Nathan said, if we upsized it, or, you wouldn't necessarily have to be upsized, necessarily for it to handle all these additional places. I mean, more than likely, they'd be pressurized systems, so they wouldn't need to flow into it, they would be pressurized to it.
Well, we've spent like,
I'm sorry, yeah.
40 minutes, almost an hour on this, so I think we've had really good discussion, and I appreciate you bringing it forward, I appreciate the time staff has done. Do I hear
Option one,
option
yeah,
one?
I'm in favor of, I think it's.
Kind of, I
worth
agree forward with that.
conversation.
Well, I think we could move forward with a comp plan amendment without going full bore, and that kind of,
Yeah, if you wanna
like,
work
lets
with
us play it
staff,
out, right?
You got enough to go on there,
Yeah,
guys?
this has been really helpful. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, I know I took advantage of the time, I appreciate it.
It's very important, and,
Yes.
there's two spaces in our comp plan that they're addressing. I always looked at those and go, man, they kind of just threw it up there and let somebody else figure it out.
Right.
And here we are, trying to
This is
figure it
one
out,
of them.
so.
All
But
right.
I do appreciate all the time that you've done
Thanks
and
for working
effort
with
that you
me.
put towards it, so, thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for the thoughtful discussion on that. I appreciate it. It is an important thing, and there are long-term thoughts that come with that. So, item number 3 is our tree fund.
Yep. Next item is the tree fund and the potential boulevard tree program that we are looking into. Just the background, the city received a $50,000 payment from the school system as part of their tree mitigation when the elementary school was approved. The current code allows for a fee in lieu, but it doesn't specify how the funds should be spent. Using the funds to replace trees was discussed during the approval process. The city does not have a tree fund separate from park dedication funds. So you'll see trees replaced in parks through the park dedication fund. Also, the city does not have a right-of-way or boulevard tree replacement program. So if trees die, they're out of their warranty period in a neighborhood. Sometimes they get cut down by Public Works. There isn't a fund or a way for the city to replace them, except for going through the HOA. So the issue before the council is, should the council consider creating a tree fund and a boulevard tree program? So the options we're looking at, really basic, high level, are create a fund and a tree program, create the fund without the boulevard tree program, and I'll go into some details about the tree program. And then do not create the tree fund and specify how the $50,000 should be spent. So the tree fund details is pretty basic, would be just to add section G to the tree preservation section in the code. And it would allow the city to receive donations too, directly for tree preservation and replacement. The $50,000 would also be placed there. And currently, the way it's structured, it was in the packet, is it would fund a boulevard tree program, or we could even use it on larger trees for the tree giveaway, because right now, the tree giveaways are saplings. So there's options for this. The way it's written into is the council could basically approve a tree program. So if there's something that you come up with that you want to spend the money on, it would just go through an approval process, the way the ordinance was drafted. So we've been working with HKGI, our landscape architect, and basically talking to them, looking at a model based in Oakdale and Columbia Heights adopted tree program. What we've seen with this is the basics are that the resident would receive a boulevard tree planted by a nursery or contractor, a watering bag, and a mulch ring. This is pretty typical. You basically want to, at some point, leave it to the homeowner to adopt it. Adding watering after or trying to buy warranties on trees is very expensive. So at some point, we would want the resident to be responsible for the upkeep of the tree. So the process basically looks like this, is that the trees would have to be in the right of way in an established neighborhood. It wouldn't be for any trees that are in neighborhoods under a warranty period. But the resident would complete an online form. There would be a list of trees to select from. They would give basic information like their name, address, phone number, email, and they would agree to water the tree, and there would be instructions on how to maintain the tree. HKGI would, what would happen is we would get a list of people that would want to adopt the tree outside of their house. We'd have to go through that list, and then HKGI would work with Public Works to ensure that there are no site utility conflicts. I think what you'll end up seeing are trees that were there that died and have been removed. So it's more of just kind of going through that process, making sure it's a eligible site. We don't want to add, if there's two trees really close, we don't want to just add another tree, right? So there are going to be some criteria that, Oakdale uses. Trees, we were looking at a once-a-year planting. This keeps the cost down from administrative side. So the idea is if you wanted to move and do this, it would probably be in May of next year. But the idea is we would get the trees, the people figured out, like who was getting the trees budgeted, and then the trees would be planted in May, basically. So that would make it easier. It wouldn't be this ongoing. If you aren't selected, we could move you to a wait list. So that's kind of the thought there. We want to make sure it's planted by a nursery landscape company, and HKGI would monitor. Like I said, they would come with a watering bag, and HKGI would just inspect just to make sure they're installed correctly. So the fiscal impact, the cost would be offset by the $50,000 payment and future donations. The program delivery costs, this is basically everything but the trees and the material, we think would cost anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 per year. And then it could just be a pilot program. Since we have the funds now for $50,000, it could be, let's see if this works, let's see how much it costs really, if it's beneficial. And if it is something that's beneficial, the council could provide funds to it for next year's budget. And like I said, typically you would try to receive donations from corporations and then also look at it as like a pay it forward type program. It's pretty common with these kind of tree nonprofits where they say, you received a tree worth this much money, please consider making a donation so someone else can have a tree in the future. So we would like to see that kind of implemented too. So really just input on what do you think about both the tree fund and the Boulevard Tree Program, and open for questions.
Councilmember Dragisich.
I think having a tree fund with Boulevard Tree Program is a really great idea. We're a tree city, we require all these trees to be planted with developments and that, but if Boulevard trees something happens, we don't replace them. And there's kind of a disconnect in my mind, and what is our value? And so I think having a Boulevard Tree Program, a tree program for our parks, makes a lot of sense, and I would fully support it. As an ongoing program, not just we put the $50,000 in, and when it's gone, oh, well, we did our part.
Okay.
So question, you guys probably, I know you were around when the Royal gave some money in lieu of trees, but that didn't necessarily go into a tree program because, sometimes in the development, it's like a ridiculous number, seems like a ridiculous number. If they take away so many trees, they gotta replace so many trees, kind of like the school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we said, all right, well, in lieu of placing the trees, we took a dollar amount, but I think that dollar amount went into the general fund.
Parks funds,
as-
yeah.
Yeah, so, I would be in favor of that, and, you know, if somebody takes down a heavily wooded area, they're supposed to put so many trees in their development, but you can only put so many trees in a boulevard or in people's yards or whatever, that the money could be placed into this tree fund for people to replace boulevard trees along the streets and take care of them. I think that's a fabulous idea. Councilmember Holtz.
With the agreement for them to water the tree, can there also be language in there, and they acknowledge there is no warranty period?
Yes.
Okay. And I would agree with both these. I want it to be an ongoing fund, not a one-time thing. I agree with the aspect of Boulevard. I would anticipate there's probably gonna be higher demand than what either the fund initially can handle or what logistically can be done. So I'm wondering, is the initial instinct to be priority based upon first come, first serve, or would we, okay,
Yeah, first come, first serve. And then we go through the list and then make sure that they're eligible, like we talked about with tree spacing and that sort of thing.
Utilities and
Utilities.
things.
I
of
say,
that
would there
nature.
be any other criteria for reasons of no besides utilities?
Not that I can think of. It's like we talked about the spacing and the
Right,
utilities.
sight distance, things of that nature, typical safety issues.
What about like amounts? I mean, we're talking, this is one tree, or what if you wanted 75 trees for your property?
Well, it would have to go through the landscape company for it to make sense related to dare I say, landscaping protocol, right? I mean,
So typically the spacing's 50 feet and it's in that section between the sidewalk and the curb.
I guess, I'm just saying more like,
What
would
about-
there be a limit where we're saying, somebody could adopt when they're, I'll step back. I'm in favor of this. I
Yeah,
think, go for it. I think
There's
the
some
details,
details, yeah.
and like, I think, just maybe for some direction for like when it's brought back, I think there's some things there that I'd like to mention now, but.
what about parts of the city that have boulevard, but there's no sidewalk?
That would be eligible if it's right of way.
Yeah, because every street has, people say, well, I mow it, but it's boulevard, right?
They
It's a-
generally put them in the same location from the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And like if you had a corner lot, maybe you could get 2 trees, right? So,
right, okay.
And I guess I'm just thinking like maybe some of the bigger lots, right? If somebody that's owned agricultural and has 40 acres.
Yep.
And they could get,
Well, I
there
think,
could be a lot of trees that could go there. So I'm just saying like, do we
but
maybe
there's some
want to
sounds like
not even
there's some
include that?
details to work on,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, I guess one thing that kind of comes to my mind right too, and I don't know if this would take it out of the Boulevard tree program, is obviously there's been a lot of trees lost, ash trees lost. I mean, is this something where maybe it would be better used for, hey, if somebody has had to cut down their ash tree, that fund, this could be to fund putting in a new tree there.
You'd think you have some statutory issues with spending public money on private property.
yeah.
Okay.
I think you want to keep it in the boulevard areas, but as we would say, I mean, we all know that, what is it, the damn cottonwoods, it's like snowing out there, that
Cut
would
'em
be,
down.
be like
Cut them down.
a tree that wouldn't be on the list, right? Basswoods would not be on the list.
You can see you got all that fuzz stuck in his beard.
Yeah, I know. It's turning
That's not
white.
age, that's not age.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
it's cottonwood.
it's cottonwoods.
Well, and along those lines, can a HOA apply for it if they have a right-of-way along a city road?
and that's something we would have to consider.
Yeah.
I mean, but then they would
Yeah,
have to,
who's then gonna be responsible for
Yeah,
it?
because they,
I think you need to have a person, not a general entity, to say, even though it's an HOA, I, Jeff Holtz, am gonna be watering this and making sure
Yeah.
that I care for it and love it and hug it and
'Cause-
squeeze it.
Because the tree's going in the public right of way.
yes. Well, I guess the reason I ask that is because now we're talking about property types. You can have a residential home that's not owned by a person, it's owned by a trust.
Well,
Or it's actually owned by a business. You have businesses where the business owner is there every day. They're a person, they don't live there, and they are fully capable of signing it as well, so.
I guess bottom line though, you have boulevard tree.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty
absolutely.
clear what a boulevard is.
I think my last thing, I just thought it was a really good point about the pay it forward. I actually think, in the idea of trying to make this a little bit more of a fund that's gonna continue to sustain itself. I mean, I don't know if there's maybe a conversation, or, this might be crazy, but like, do we actually charge some fee for the trees? So at least we're replenishing the fund somewhat, and then with the ask for, you know, the full price of this is $500, and, you know, you're getting a deal for 200, but if you wanna pay it forward. I'm just trying to think of, you know, I thought that was a really good point, I didn't even think of it, but as a way to make it more sustainable, outside of just hoping that businesses will, you know, or, you know, as a legacy that people pass on monies to this fund.
What if they can buy a 2-year warranty for $200?
Actually, I
mean,
know, honestly.
I'm not even
yeah.
kidding. That's how insurance works.
Yeah.
Charles just gave me the look, but.
No,
But I guess I just honestly.
again, I do, I'd love to keep it simple,
Yeah,
right?
get it.
So it's easy to use. I'd love to make it personally voluntary for people, because there might be somebody that just had something, maybe they lost a tree due to some construction, they're dealing with assessments and whatever,
Fair.
they'd like that tree replaced.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not in a position to put $400, but there are plenty of people say, shit, $200. You can put a tree in, it's subsidized, whatever, I'm gonna take care of it, it's in front of my yard, it's gonna look great. It's not gonna put out dusty white stuff. Yeah, let's do it. So,
Could have the donations be an optional donation.
yeah.
All right, so just keep it
Yeah.
optional donation.
I
Yeah,
think
I think
so.
that's, I think that's a good point. Keep it
I
simple.
don't wanna make it onerous
it-
for somebody,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good point. I like that idea, though. I think that is definitely something to push for with it.
I think in general, 8 out of 10 people are like, you know, I'd like to think that the greater good's pretty,
You can donate whatever you
pretty
want.
yeah.
Doesn't have
Well,
to be
these tree programs are fairly common around other cities, so we're not taking and inventing something new. They've been around in other cities for a while, and they've been successful.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
we are an arbor
yeah.
city, so. Yeah.
Do you have enough?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was thinking, we just gotta figure out a way to, well, never mind. I'll
Keep it going.
Yeah. I was at a golf outing, and there was, if you hit it on the green, it was for a church outing. If you hit it on the green, you know, you bet money and they'll pay you $10. And then, so I hit it on the green and I got my $10, and then the priest comes up to me and says, well, I can give you this, or you could donate it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, really? Like,
I've been at those scholarship fundraisers, like, and you won $100, or you can just give it to the scholarship.
The other thing is, if we have the fund, there may be charities that would donate it to it. You know,
Right.
We have charitable gambling, maybe, well, we'll give $1,000 to the city for the tree
Yeah.
fund, because it saves the environment.
You told the priest
Captures
no?
carbon.
No, so I gave him $20, I think. I think I gave him double.
All right. Is that enough for you?
That is enough. Just to clarify, we will come back with a program that will be approved by the
All right.
council. So like the details will get worked out and you'll see everything.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, GFOA Certificate of Achievement.
I did not do a presentation. I'm going to make this quick right here.
Okay.
I just wanted some quick feedback from council. We have spent a lot of time doing audit preparation and for the last 6 months. And part of that is to sort of go through these processes for this certificate of achievement through the national GFOA. And every time I had to touch this thing, I wondered, what do we get from this? And so I spoke with Tammy Umdahl, our municipal advisor. It does not affect our bond rating at all. I spoke with our auditors. There are some extra steps. It does not affect any type of, other than adding to that process, it really doesn't affect that audit or how it's viewed by whoever. And so before I stop doing this, we wanted to see if that would be okay with you. I did bring along our existing plaque. It's nice and heavy, but this, for 10 years, cost us probably over $50,000. So that's my question. Do we want another little dot?
I would,
Yes,
I would say it's, you know, it's like putting ice cream on top of the frosting on top of the honey. The audit doesn't change. You know, it's the same audit, same opinion, it's valued the same. It's kind of a nice thing to have in some ways, but I would bet if you asked 100 city councilors in the immediate area, how many look at that audit, does it have a certificate? Most would not be able to tell because people ignore it, they look at the audit. I just don't see it adds anything but cost to what we're doing.
I concur.
personally.
Fully concur.
I'll just ask one question. I mean, they brought it up where they talk about the goal of this is to go beyond just generally acceptable and to increase the transparency. How does this increase the transparency, I guess would be my one question.
I don't know that I would be able to explain
Okay.
that. The concepts that they are covered
I
in
think
the
that's what a
review.
general audit does, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
And that's where I'm going
the
with it. Isn't
concepts
it?
are
Sounds
so
like
beyond
we're
my
kinda just-
comprehension.
It sounds like we're paying for some letters to be added to it to make it look more official.
Right.
That aren't actually changing any of the
Right.
financials.
Right.
And it's not making
We
it
pay
less
our auditor, we
transparent.
pay our auditors to review our financials and present that information to you. Now we've been paying extra money to pay essentially my peers and some other auditors to review that audit. That
No
is already
transparency is
subject
lost.
to,
Ixnay, the GFOA Certificate of Authentication A.
Can we just have our regular auditors give us a nice plaque?
how about we give the auditors
We
a
make
plaque
one.
and
How
be
about
like,
if we
thank
just
you
make
so
our own
much.
plaque?
Yeah, for
Our own. I- I'm
50,000.
good with that.
We can make it a nice lightweight,
Make a
print on the
statue now.
printer.
All right,
We
fair
passed
enough.
again.
I
Thanks-
think
thanks
making
for the
plaques should go
question.
To the youngest member of the city council.
And thank you for saving the
Wait, who's that? I
city
don't even know
some dollars there.
Thank you.
We do have a request to change garbage collection start time. Look at that, we're right back on schedule. The agenda, folks.
Perfect.
Work.
So I have attached the letter that we received from the owners of tennis, asking us to consider changing our garbage hauling to start at 6 AM instead of 7 AM. And before I had staff do any work on this, I wanted to generally get a feel for the council. Perhaps this has come up in the past and there was discussion, or should we look into it, or hard no? Just kind of want to get a feel to see what your thoughts are.
I swear I had the trash service come when I was in Legacy. I swear they came at like 5 AM in the morning.
It would not surprise me if the other companies come and get the trash at various times.
Yeah.
I
You
think
know,
ours
and
have been there like 6:30 in the morning.
I know in their letter, they mentioned Stillwater. I did check with the city of Stillwater. I was told that it was 7 o'clock. I checked with Woodbury at 6 o'clock, Maplewood 6 o'clock. I wasn't able to get a response back from North St. Paul. You
It
would,
is 7.
it's
probably.
7. You know, interestingly enough, for me, they had a little trigger in there that it's probably a little bit safer for the drivers if they get in there before 7 o'clock, not have to go around some construction equipment that may be starting at 7 o'clock and things of that nature. And to be real honest, I don't pay attention to when those guys come. Is there a little truck noise? Does it maybe affect it in the summer a little bit if the window's open, but it's one day a week? I don't really have a lot of consternation over a 6 versus 7.
It's not something that's been brought up before.
It's not a not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's not something that you guys had previously come up.
You know, and it's, they're in and then they're out. It's not it's not like a backup alarm on a backhoe or an excavator that's gonna go beep, 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 beep for a construction site that we wanna start at 7. I guess that would be the differentiator I would think about.
Maybe one thing we could do, Mayor, would be have staff just find out, take cities immediately adjacent to us and what is their policy?
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't take much to
Yeah.
cause a city administrator or public work, have Marty call the other public works guys and say, what time do you allow your garbage haulers to start? At least then we'd have a reference point when it came up and say, well, most of our neighbors allow it at 6 and, not that would make our final decision.
Yeah,
maybe
they made
couple weeks,
they made a point. We are a growing community. We're getting more residents in there. There is more trash to be picked up. It takes time.
Well, and technically, construction workers can bring their equipment and be driving on the streets at 6 AM as well. They just can't start work.
Right.
And their equipment can be just as loud as a garbage truck, so
That truck should not start before 7.
the work.
The diesel truck excavator should
Oh,
not be cranked
On
on
site, yes.
before 7.
But if they're bringing the dump truck, if they're
If you ask
bringing the
me
loader,
technically. But,
Bring in the concrete forms.
yes.
yeah, bring them in, set them up, as long as they're not doing jackhammering and things of that nature.
And we could also see if the cities that do 6 AM have any complaints from their citizens at all too. but I don't see a problem with 6 AM. I've never.
I don't either.
I never hear them, to be honest, so.
Can we, can this be something that maybe gets put on the Facebook? I mean, because tonight we're just saying, hey, like, yeah, bring this to council to vote on, or would it just be give it the go-ahead?
Oh, I was just looking to see if you wanted us to do some research to bring it back for you to make a decision.
Would we have to
That
vote on
would-
a decision?
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going with this is like, I would care less, like, it's not gonna impact me, but if there's a bunch of residents that don't love this, like, great, but nobody really comes to the meetings.
The
you know,
only
that's
ones
the
you're
way
gonna
we
hear
know.
from are the ones that are against it. The people that are okay
Yeah.
with it aren't gonna say anything.
Yeah,
It's no worse than if a snowplow go by your house at 4 a.m.
yeah. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm okay with this. If
That
we want more
is a good point.
transparency,
Let's
wanna throw it-
check with surrounding cities and let's see if they get a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
and
Sure, okay.
just- Yeah,
We
I
will
don't
look at
think
it.
it's out of
All right,
consideration.
and we'll bring it back.
And if it can, you know, if they gotta do that and help keep costs down, again, it could, you know, if they gotta put more trucks out to get to more residents, it costs them more,
costs
right?
more, yeah.
So, there's that
point there.
avenue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
really.
All right. I don't know, Eric, what do we have on the next, it says future agenda items, but I don't have anything in my packet to look at. Do you know what's on our next, workshop next month?
I can pull that up for you right now. One
Appreciate it.
I do.
second.
Didn't ask you.
Oh, our next workshop in July is our CIP discussion. That's why
Okay.
Clarissa knows. And also, Marty bumped the sidewalk and trail, the snow removal,
Okay.
to later, so.
Okay.
but that's
All
our
right.
next workshop.
What about the stormwater utility?
We are meeting internally as staff this Friday to discuss it
Okay.
more. So
Okay.
it's coming.
That's probably a longer discussion. Yeah. All right. Given that, look at that, 12 minutes before the agenda says, and I'd like to adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you for everybody's participation.